people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died there, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died there, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time of night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time of night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time of night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one cry, not a blade of grass.
Members, Speaker.
Honorable members, I declare this 28th sitting of the National Assembly of the 12th Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana to be duly constituted and in session. The clerk will lead us in prayers.
Almighty God, we are gathered together. We most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, thine aid and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead, that all the people of this fair land may enter into that state of brotherhood and unity, where the mind is led forward by thee, with the ever-widening thought and action.
Thank you. Honorable members, please be seated.
Messages from the President. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, we have had, since our last sitting, a ruling by our courts regarding two persons who were sitting in the National Assembly. I refer to the words of the Honorable former Speaker, Mr. Scotland, on the 27th of February 2016. And he concluded this way: the honorable members are not here, but I believe that I owe it to members of this House to understand their absence. Whatever views may exist in relation to the decision of the court at any time, the first obligation is to obey those decisions, and then we proceed from here. As I've mentioned, the honorable members, the persons so mentioned, are not here today. Mr. Clerk.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports, etc.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I present to the Assembly the annual reports of the Public Utilities Commission for the years 2018 and 2019.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance.
Mr. Speaker, I present to the National Assembly the following documents. One, mortgage finance agreement between the Government of Guyana and the Bank of Baroda Guyana, Inc. Two, loan agreement number 10, SFR ORGY, dated February 24th, 2021, between the Caribbean Development Bank and the Cooperative Republic of Guyana for an amount of $112,432,000 US. The purpose of this loan is to assist the government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana in financing the Linden to Mabura Hill Road Upgrade Project. 3. Loan agreement number 22, SFR-GUY, dated February 24th, 2021, between the Caribbean Development Bank and the Cooperative Republic of Guyana for an amount of $9,780,000 US. The purpose of this loan is to assist the government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana in financing the Tourism and Hospitality Training Institute project. 4, loan contract number 5180BLGY, dated March 9th, 2021, between the Cooperative Republic of Guyana and the Inter-American Development Bank for an amount of $30,400,000 US. The purpose of this loan is to contribute to the financing and execution of the support and safety nets for vulnerable populations affected by coronavirus in Guyana. 5, financing agreement credit number 6825GY, dated March 10th, 2021, between the Cooperative Republic of Guyana and the International Development Association in an amount equivalent to $9,500,000 special drawing rights for the purpose of 1, providing additional financing for the original secondary education improvement project dated 10th October 2014, credit number 5473GY, and 2, amending the said original financing agreement. 6, public debt annual report 2020. 7, financial paper number 1 of 2021, supplementary estimates current and capital totaling $1,906,775,000 for the period from 1st April 2021 to 8th June 2021. And 8, financial paper number 2 of 2021, supplementary estimates current and capital totaling $21,360,385,051 for the period ended 31st December 2021. And Mr. Speaker, in relation to the 2 aforementioned financial papers, I wish, sir, to name Monday, June 14th as the date for consideration of the said papers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance and Government Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to present to the Assembly the annual report of the Police Complaints Authority for the year 2019.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister of Public Works.
Mr. Speaker, I present to the Assembly audited financial statements of the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority for the years 2012 through to 2016.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I present to the Assembly the Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment of the Second Schedule, Order 2021, number dated 2021.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Reports from committees. Oral questions without notice. Questions on notice.
Honorable members, there are 15 questions on today's order paper. Questions number 1 to 12 are for written replies. Questions number 13 to 15 are for oral replies. Questions number 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4, and 5 are in the name of the Honorable Member, Ms. Annette Ferguson, and are for the Honorable Minister of Housing and Water. Question number 2 is in the name of the Honorable Member, Ms. Annette Ferguson, and is for the Honorable Minister of Human Services and Social Security. Questions numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are in the name of the Honorable Member, Mr. Ganesh Mahipal, and are for the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. Question number 11 is in the name of the Honorable Member, Ms. Geeta Chandan Edmond, and is for the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. Question number 12 is in the name of the Honorable Member, Ms. Tabitha Sarabo Halley, and is for the Honorable Minister of the Public Service. The answer to all of these questions have been received and have, in accordance with our standing orders, been circulated. Question number 13. We're on to oral replies. Is in the name of the Honorable Member, Mr. Jermaine Figuera. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera, you may ask your question of the Honorable Minister of Labor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Honorable Minister inform the House how many Guyanese and foreigners are presently employed at the former Guyana Goldfields operations at Aurora that is now managed by AGM Zinc?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just to inform the House, 58 expatriates and 860 Guyanese as of March 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you.
Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Can the Honorable Minister further inform the House whether they are subcontractors employed by the said company? And if yes, please provide the names of those subcontractors and the number of Guyanese they have employed.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, subcontractors, police, Orbit, Garant Drilling, Orica, Rubis, Markov, D. Navin, Sevens Waste Management, Gavin's Catering, Jysing, Wahid Contracting, YNN Trading, Zero Corp Limited, Supram and Sons, total 32 employees, expatriates, and 430 are employed by the contract.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Can the Honorable Minister inform the House whether the Guyanese employed directly whether the Guyanese workers directly employed with the said company are permanent or contracted for a period. Please provide the number of each category and state the length of contract in each instance.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, permanent employees 404, temporary on 3 months, 26, contracted employees with the contractors 354.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figueroa.
Is the Minister in a position to advise this House whether the employees referred to in B and C are in compliance with the National Insurance Scheme?
Mr. Speaker, let me inform the House that that question is totally misdirected. The Ministry of Labor has nothing to do with NIS.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figueroa.
Supplemental, sir. Mr. Speaker, Guyanese workers are a responsibility in most regard by the Ministry of Labor. And if Guyanese workers are being shortchanged with regards to the benefits that can be derived from the contributions to NIS, then it should be a matter of concern to the Ministry of Labor.
Honorable Member, the standing orders are quite elusive, and you can direct that question to the appropriate minister after you submit it through the proper process. This is not the minister responsible for the National Insurance Scheme.
Can the Honorable Minister additionally inform the House how many Guyanese employees covered in question B and C, if any, contracted COVID-19 during the period 2020 to 2021? Were they negatively affected by non-remittances to NIS contributions?
Honorable Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, both questions in that are misdirected.
Honorable
Speaker,
Member, Mr. Figueroa.
Can the Honorable Minister inform this House if any of those workers at the said company contracted COVID-19?
Mr. Speaker, again, I'm saying that the question is totally misdirected. The Ministry of Labor has nothing to do with health situation in Guyana.
Honorable Member, Mr. Figueroa.
Mr. Speaker, can the Minister with responsibility for health provide the responses to the question posed?
Honorable Member, there is a process, and
It's a supplemental question.
And the supplemental and supplementary question has to be to the minister on the floor, which your question had been directed to. I don't want to go through the process of putting a question on the order paper. I think you are now here long enough to understand that process.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question number 14. Question number 14 is in the name of the Honorable Member, Mr. Jermaine Figueroa. Honorable Member, please ask your question.
Can the Honorable Minister inform this House which sports ground by name and region will be upgraded in 2021?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to be able to receive the questions from the honourable member of the opposition. And I have with me
the entire list for which we are planning to do the upgrades. And I will go through the entire list so that the nation can see, and also that they can know at the appropriate time. I will lay a report over to the public of how partisan the allocation of resources for ground enhancement in the previous administration was. So, for example, in Region 2, over $30 million were spent on ground enhancement, and only 2 grounds they were spent on. Dartmouth, a PNC area, and Queenstown, a PNC area. No allocations for the people of Pomona, the people of Study, the people of Anna Regina, the people of Devonshire Castle. No allocations anywhere else excepting those locations. And at the appropriate time, I knew at some point, Mr. Speaker, that there would be questions along these lines. And at the appropriate time, because I have the entire record for how partisan the allocation of resources were by the AP and UAFC, where no area was spent, no money was allocated for areas that were supportive of the PPP, and all of the resources were spent. Meanwhile, even in areas that are unsupportive of the People's Progressive Party, I would like the nation to know that we are going to be spending not only money on their grounds, but equal amounts of monies. So since you have asked, and I know that you have included in there what amounts are going to be spent, I'm going to share it with the House so that you know that we are for all Guyanese. All Guyanese. Reliance, $10 million. Queenstown, $10 million. Affiance, $10 million. CI, $10 million. Tushen, $10 million. Metamirzorg, $10 million. Zealot, $10 million. Zeeburg, $10 million. Good Fortune, $10 million. Success, $10 million. Buxton, $10 million. Enterprise, $10 million. Better Hope, $10 million. I'm not finished this yet. I have to turn the page. And more, $10 million. Bath Settlement, $10 million. Blairmont, $10 million. Bushlot, $10 million. Cotton Tree, $10 million. Port Moran, $10 million. Lime Park, $10 million. Rose Hall, $10 million. Rose Hall Kanji, sorry. And just so that you know, because I know that there was so much neglect for community centers and grounds by the last administration under the AP and UAFC. I have been able to make the recommendations to the cabinet for the request of additional sums. So part of the supplementary budget that has been tabled by the Honorable Minister with responsibility for finance, we've just asked for an additional $75 million for community grounds, so that the region of number 10 and number 7 and number 1, the entire country will be able to get the allocations for their grounds and community centers. And this will continue for the duration of the People's Progressive Party term, of this term, and for all the other terms to come. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can the Honorable Minister inform this House what selection process was utilized to identify these grounds? And what were the determinants to determine the amount of monies to be allocated to those said grounds without the political speeches? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to share what the selection process looked like. The People's Progressive Party understands how important communities and community center grounds are to this country. And when we had the request to come to locations by the representatives of the regions, by the representatives of the communities and their residents, and the community center representatives, those requests came in such an abundance that the ministry engaged in an aggressive community ground assessment program. And when we started to go there, that was how we were able to get the assessment of how bad the neglect was by the APNU AFC. It was so bad that even the public facilities, the gymnasium, for example, right here in Georgetown, in South Georgetown, which is an area that serves probably 100,000 people, the bush was this high, bigger than me, heaps of junk filled the yard. And that is the condition and the care that you were showing to the Guyanese people. Shame. It was a disgrace. I went into the Edward area in Region 5 with the Honorable Member Jaffarali, and the bush was this high. And let me tell you something. We went into Blackbush Polo in a place called Zambia. The APNU AFC chose to spend money on a ground that was another stronghold for them. $20 million was allocated to that area, and the ground was never used. Up to today, it is locked up because the project was not completed. Substandard work. The people of the area never benefited. It was a national disgrace to see how communities were neglected by the APNU AFC. And it was sad to see as well that all the time, the 5 years, the $1.4 trillion that was spent by the APNU AFC, and this was the state of conditions that you left grounds in. So when we went to the locations, I want the honorable member of the opposition to know that it is because of this kind of neglect to the Guyanese people that is why they're there in opposition. So that when we engage in this aggressive community ground assessment program, it was with the consultation of the people who were there, their representatives, the MPs, the community center executives, the residents, as well as the technical officers from the region that are connected to the ministry, and also the technical officers who are working and employed at the ministry. We did those assessments at the grounds ourselves. And the allocation, just because we know that we want all of the communities to know that we are a government of all people. It means that the sums allocated for those grounds have to be equivalent. And at the appropriate time, Mr. Ramjatan, I want you to understand as well that the People's Progressive Party will get to every single ground in this country. And the way that we chose these grounds after the assessment of the neglect is on the basis of the density of the people in the locations, the prominence of the facility, the access to the facility, all of those things, and also how many different types of activities can be done at that ground too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has failed to inform this House. How did he come up with the figure? Almost every ground mentioned, $10 million is being allocated. What mechanism were put in place for you to decide that this ground needs $10 million? How is it that the ground identically got $10 million? This is taxpayers' money, and we have a right to know how this determinant came about. How did you come about to this figure?
Honorable Minister.
What I explained, but I understand that it would be difficult for the honorable member of the opposition coming from the APNU AFC to understand that the allocation of sums were equal, and equality, fairness, and equity are principles that the APNU AFC will never be able to comprehend.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am baffled, I am bewildered that the minister would tell this House that his government is about equality, when the people of Kokwani is under 8 and 10 feet of water, and they're not getting the assistance as the people in Port Moran.
Honorable Member.
But Mr. Speaker,
could you stick to the question, please?
Mr. Speaker, the minister has failed to inform this House. This is not about political chauvinism. We need the minister to give account for the taxpayers' money. Tell this House how you determine that each identified ground that you listed there with a big showboat, how is it that you came about with $10 million? Because the grounds aren't identical in every community. The sizes are different. The soil texture is different. What is it that gave you the insight to determine that these grounds require $10 million? Accuse a magician.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
I have answered the question, Mr.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 15 is in the name of the Honorable Member, Mr. Jermaine Figuera. Honorable Member, you may ask your question.
Mr. Speaker, it is unjust that we are here after 90 days plus days to ask questions for transparency and accountability. I have put a supplemental question to the Honorable Minister, and you are not allowing him to respond to this House and to this nation. $10 million to each ground.
Honorable Member, if you have a problem with the decision of the Speaker, there is a set way for you to address that. The Honorable Minister said he has answered the question.
And I'm saying,
apparently you and I are in two different places. I don't think so. I have called on you to ask your question, number 15.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, am I not permitted for supplemental? The standing order provides to me to have supplemental. 2 supplemental, and I would have asked 1 to the minister.
Your supplementals were more than 1.
Pardon, sir?
Your supplementals, sir, were more than 1. The minister said he answered your question. If you want another supplemental, which is not a repeat, I will ask you to go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, of one of the grounds that the minister said $10 million will be allocated to good fortune. Can the minister state if the ground is in the scheme or is it the road ground? And in him identifying which area the ground is, could he provide us with how he determined that 10 million will be allocated to that ground? Thank you.
So those are two supplemental questions, right?
I didn't hear
Honorable
the
Minister?
question. I didn't hear the question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I didn't. Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear the question entirely.
Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Mr.
Can you
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the minister has listed a number of grounds. One such ground is good fortune. Could he indicate to this House where in this community, is it the scheme or the road ground, will be this investment of $10 million will be put? And can he in the same, can he provide to the House, how is it that he and his team at the ministry came up with $10 million for the ground enhancement in this, at this identified ground?
Thank you.
What mechanism was used?
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And you're
So
speaking of good fortune, right?
Yeah, the first part of the question I'll
Honorable
answer,
Minister.
which is that it is in the scheme. But the second part of the question, I will revert to my former response.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Mr. Speaker, can the Honorable Minister inform the House which areas in Region 10, 6, and 2 will mini sports stadiums be built in 2021? How were these sites selected? Cost per stadium and proposed contract length for the building of these mini stadiums. Given the sum of over $1 billion that was identified in the 2021 budget, reference 220 Volume 1.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, once again. I was at pains to determine where this reference of 220 Volume 1 is with reference to the budget for the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. So I took the time to photocopy the page of 220 of Volume 1. And I find I'm at liberty to be able to share with this Honorable House what is at page 220 of Volume 1. It says here, details of expenditure as the caption. Agency details. Next line, agency, colon, 3-2, name of ministry, Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Page 220, Volume 1, Ministry of Public Infrastructure. The Honorable Member is referencing a page for a ministry that no longer exists. So now I have to take the time to figure out what is he trying to say. I now have to take the time to teach the Honorable Member how to read a budget and how to read the budget book. And I don't mind really because, you know, I am the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport. So I will direct his attention to
page 653 of volume 1 and 654 of volume 1. And I now have to explain to him where he says that in the last sentence, given that the sum of over $1 billion was identified in the 2021 budget, Honorable Member, over $1 billion was not identified in the budget for sport. You're supposed to be the shadow minister for culture, youth, and sport. And you do not even know how much money was allocated for the Ministry of Culture, Youth, and Sport. And particular, the question that he is writing, it's not that he has asked an oral question extemporaneously. He didn't ask the question extemporaneously. He sat down on his computer and he took the time to write it. And he did not even understand that over $1 billion was not allocated. And wants to ask the minister questions, you should first take the time to learn how to read the budget. I don't need to explain to you. I will explain to him. It was $915 million was allocated as part of the capital budget for sport. The total budgetary allocation was $1.5 billion, the largest budgetary allocation for sport in this country's history. And just to be clear, the project allocation that he's referring to, which are the multi-purpose facilities, the multi-sport facilities, the mini stadium in 6, 10, and 2. If you go to the project details on page, this is reference, this is in volume 3. The exact, it's on program 444. It says here, for that specific project detail, it says $200 million has been allocated. But as you should know, because it says so in the details, it is foreign funded. It is foreign funded. So you have to be able to finalize the terms of the agreement before you get to access the money. The ministry, the government of Guyana, is in the final stages of fleshing out the details of the terms for the grant, and that there are some bits of information that I'm able to share at this stage and some bits that I'm not, because it will prejudice the stage of the negotiations at this point. But all 3 of those locations were chosen as significant enhancements of existing facilities so that multi-purpose stadiums can be built.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Figuera.
Mr. Speaker, I could challenge the minister to a battle of wits, but we all know that Mr. Batiline is ill-informed and ill-equipped. Mr. Speaker, the supplemental. Mr. Speaker, the nation is aware that this is a foreign-funded project by the Chinese government. And the question still remains. In Region 6, in Region 10, in Region 2, where these projects, these mini projects, are expected to be established. The question I ask the Honorable Minister is where in these regions, Mr. Speaker, these mini stadiums will be built? How are these sites in Region 10, Region 6, and Region 2 were identified? That is what we would like to know.
And if you are saying to this House that you are in a negotiation phase with the Chinese for the remainder of this allocation, then the Honorable Minister should be in a position, Mr. Speaker, to say to this House, this is what this mini stadium in Region 10 will cost. This is what the mini stadium in Region 6 and 2 will cost, based on the amount that is left, because the Chinese has already committed. They have given more than $200 million. So obviously, the ministry should have a plan, a futuristic plan of where they want to put down this stadium and the cost. So please, Honorable Minister, inform the House where will these sites be and how is it that you determine that this is the site and the most suitable location for these mini stadiums to be put.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much, Honorable Member Mr. Figueroa. Honorable Minister.
The exact locations for all three mini stadiums have already been publicly identified. In fact, you would have heard none other than His Excellency the President, who would have made that announcement even before the budget was presented to this House. One is Anna Regina, the community center there. The second is the Mackenzie Sports Club. And then the third is the Albion Community Ground in Region 6. They were all identified in advance. And just so that, since you're asking about Region 10 and Region 6 and Region 2, I would like you to acknowledge that the APNU AFC gave the Mackenzie Sports Club no money in the last 5 years. None. 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 In fact, the lights that are still existing at the Mackenzie Sports Club, Miss Gail Teixeira was the one that provided those lights when she was minister. That is a fact. That is a fact. Those locations were identified as the most prominent for the locations, and they will be the significant enhancements where they will turn into that stadium. And as you know as well, when you're asking about stadia and track, etc. in Region 10, I would like you at some point to ask me, why has the project been delayed? The APNU AFC project been delayed and behind time for over 2 years. It's not completed. I want you to also tell the public that it would have costed us an extra $50 million because you wanted to turn the track into green and yellow. Green and yellow. And then I also want you to tell the public that there was no catering for stands for the public, the residents of Linden, to be able to come to the stadium and watch the track and field, look at the games.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member Mr. Figueroa.
Mr. Speaker.
40 minutes
Mr. Speaker.
is the amount of time allocated for questions. And we started at 2:25. It's now 3:06, according to the clock I'm using. Go ahead, Honorable Member. You may ask the supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, you know, it is so disappointing that the minister would want to mislead this House. And the minister cannot accept the view that development happens on a phase-by-phase basis. You cannot just go to a community and make empty promises. It is this coalition administration who would have recognized the importance of Region 10, who would have won significantly at the National School Championship, 16 consecutive victories. And your administration failed to put a track in Region 10, even though we give this nation the most national athletes. So don't bring that nonsense to the House.
Honorable member, you
Speaker,
have impinged on two standing orders.
But Mr.
One, imputing on the minister. He says that he would want to mislead the House. And the second you just did. So please, ask the question and let's get the minister to answer. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minister has informed this House that the Mackenzie Sports Club was identified as the location for this mini track, Mr. Speaker. What form of consultation did the minister and the ministry took to the community of Linden? Mr. Speaker, there are far more superior locations than the Mackenzie Sports Club ground. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker? So you cannot just come and impose on the people what you think is best for them. This is taxpayers' money that we're spending. And taxpayers in Region 10 in Linden must have a say in the decisions of where this facility goes. We are the bedrock of athletic powers in this country. So you cannot come with your dictatorial tendencies and say to us, this is where you're going to put it for us. You have to consult with the people of Region 10.
Thank you, honorable member.
My final question, Mr. Speaker. Can the honorable minister inform this House in what way building the mini stadiums in Region 10 and 6 in particular will complement or augment the ongoing construction of the semi-stadiums with the synthetic track in Region 10 and 6, given the conceptual design of the latter?
Thank you very much, honorable member. Honorable minister.
These are entirely different projects. There are two in Region 10, for example. One is on one side of the river, the other one is on the other side of the river. There are two different in their orientations for sports. One is for track and field. One is going to be for a multi-purpose sport facility. And the projects themselves are not going to augment each other that are there. They are two different projects.
Thank you, honorable minister. Honorable members, we have exhausted the time with allocated for questions, and I now ask the clerk. Let's proceed.
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member, Ms. Ferguson, you.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of order, standing order 48. Earlier,
Before you could make the speech, tell me what's the point of order you're standing. Don't stand on the order line. What is the point of order you are standing on? Also,
providing information, elucidation, Comrade Speaker.
well, we have, and this is on oral questions. Oral questions, the minister, honorable member.
You can teach me.
Honorable member, is this oral questions, the minister?
Pardon me?
Following up on what Mr. Figueroa said?
No, sir.
Well,
what the honorable member said.
First of all, there is no minister on the floor at this time. So I don't know where the standing order is going to apply. The particular, okay. We've exhausted oral questions, and we are now at the point in the order paper where it says statement by ministers.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if you would permit me, I'm standing on a point of order based on what my colleague Honorable Jermaine Figueroa would have asked the honorable member a question.
Honorable member, I've already said we have exhausted the 40 minutes and I gave some leeway. We took an extra 6 minutes. Mr. Clerk?
Statements by ministers, including policy statements.
Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable Prime Minister, statement by ministers.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. I was not sleeping. I was given another matter. Mr. Speaker, today I wish to provide an update to this House and its honorable members on the recent flooding across Guyana and our government's response to provide relief to persons in affected areas to date and going forward. In the past several weeks, high tides and torrential rains have led to flooding in all regions across Guyana. The massive rainfall experienced in May alone was recorded as the second highest rainfall across the country in the last 40 years. Guyana's rainy season usually lasts, Mr. Speaker, until early June for regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The northern parts of regions 6, 7, 8, and 10, while it will continue until early August for regions 9 and the southern parts of region 6. Based on the latest seasonal reports, however, it is estimated that we will continue to experience above normal rainfall during the period June to August 2021. During this period, Mr. Speaker, an increase in the number of wet days and approximately 7 days of extreme wet spells can be expected. Flooding also remains a concern for our nation, at least for the period June into mid-July. Written by Mike yours truly. Mr. Speaker, all the rivers between the Amakura to the Quarantine have overtopped their banks, flooding all contiguous farmlands throughout the coast. The situation in our hinterland is equally distressing. One can only recall the graphic photos about Kokwani, Rupununi, etc. And to date, food security is now threatened in all our hinterland communities, especially regions 7, 8, and 9. To date, Mr. Speaker, these severe conditions have affected over 29,300 households in more than 300 communities across all administrative regions and have caused damage to homes, distress to and loss of livestock and domestic animals, destruction of crops, farmlands, and other forms of livelihood. Families, Mr. Speaker, have been forced to evacuate and seek sanctuary at shelters due to the damage caused to their homes. Under the stewardship of President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, our government was swift in our response to flood-affected areas, Mr. Speaker. Cabinet members and other government officials conducted multi-stakeholder outreaches to affected communities throughout our country to conduct a first-hand assessment of the situation and lead and participate in the ongoing relief measures for people. Mr. Speaker, President Ali has also assured our nation of our government's commitment to supporting affected families by finding ways to ensure that their livelihoods can be returned to them following the damage caused by this disaster. Mr. Speaker, in the wake of these devastating conditions, the Civil Defense Commission has been exceedingly active in its shelter management, evacuation, and relief distribution efforts across Guyana. To date, Mr. Speaker, the CDC has distributed 19,935 food hampers, 17,429 cleaning hampers to affected persons as a form of emergency relief in all the affected communities of Guyana. And as I speak, a total of 201 persons have been housed to date in shelters in many of the affected communities. Mr. Speaker, specific relief measures by the CDC include ongoing management of shelter operations at Kokwani, Mapletown, Rockstone, and supporting the establishment of additional shelters at Kururu, Parawab, Tabatinga, and in other communities as they see fit. Continued on-ground support and assessment in Upper Mazaruni, in Region 7 and Region 8. And I wish to report, Mr. Speaker, that we have been able to reach those affected communities, notwithstanding the challenges of the terrain in Region 7 and Region 8. The establishment of a bank account in collaboration with the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry to facilitate donations from members of the public towards the flood response is in place. Continued engagement with the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and other regional and international stakeholders for support to our national flood response. Continued public updates of the situation through regular press releases, interviews, and alerts. Provision of technical support to the regional emergency response system, the acquisition of financial support and relief supplies from the private sector, citizens, and non-governmental organizations are ongoing. Mr. Speaker, these response measures will remain in place as the Civil Defense Commission continues to receive reports of flooding across the country and continuous verification of these reports. Mr. Speaker, cognizant that a holistic and robust approach is key to effectively tackling these harsh conditions and bringing urgent relief to our citizens, response measures have also been implemented by other governmental and non-governmental agencies, and we are happy for that. Municipalities, Regional Democratic Council, Neighborhood Democratic Council, all continue to conduct outreaches to respond to and assess the situation and provide updates to the Civil Defense Commission. Hydromet continues to monitor the weather system and issue technical alerts and warning. The National Drainage and Irrigation Authority has been conducting drainage assessments and remedial works in key affected areas. Mr. Speaker, regional and civil engineers continue to monitor drainage systems, including sluices and pumps. The Ministries of Agriculture and Health continue to conduct assessments in key affected areas. The Private Sector Commission has mobilized and handed over food hampers and other forms of support to the Civil Defense Commission and to regional democratic councils for distribution to the affected people in the communities. Other government and non-governmental and private sector entities continue to donate both in cash and in kind to support response. To date, Mr. Speaker, we have received over $35 million in monetary donation toward food relief, flood relief. It is this type of unwavering support, Mr. Speaker, that showcases the true spirit of unity among our people when our country faces hardship. And for this, our government and people are immensely grateful. Mr. Speaker, just to illustrate the work that was done on an emergency basis over the last 3 weeks in Region 2, more than 11 communities have been severely affected by the flooding. Interventions by the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority included the dredging of outfalls. In Perth, Three Friends, Taymouth Manor, Devonshire Castle, repairs was also made to charity pumps, while a breach at Amazon was temporarily sealed by the Ministry of Public Works. NDIA will install tubes and build a revetment in that area too. In Region 2, Mr. Speaker, an additional 13 communities were impacted, and interventions made by the NDIA involved the mechanical excavation and heightening of embankment at the back of Free and Easy, the West Bank Demerara, the construction of 5 stop-off and deployment of excavators to the communities of Cusha and Old Scheme, Lopar Faith Harmony, Bell West, and Parika. Works in these areas are ongoing. Further, in areas such as Potentia, Vive La Force, and Priceland, the water levels have shown signs of receding. Mr. Speaker, in Region 4, more than 55 households have been negatively impacted by the flooding. Particularly those on the east coast of Demerara, where 6 of the 56 pumps located on the coast are in need of urgent repairs. 2 pumps are in need of urgent repair. Excavators are working round the clock to repair breaches, Mr. Speaker. Number 10, Little Baibu. Further, Mr. Speaker, the NDIA will rehabilitate the dams at Dio Head to prevent overtopping of the Maiko River into cattle pastures. On the east bank of Demerara, Mr. Speaker, the East Demerara Water Conservancy continues to discharge at Land of Canaan, and the Kofi sluice was also successfully tested for use in discharging from the Conservancy to ensure all systems are operational in the event it should be needed. Mr. Speaker, in Region 5, more than 8 communities have been severely affected. A number of interventions were made by the NDIA, such as cleaning the Maikoni Creek channel and deploying excavators on the banks of the Maikoni Creek to reinforce flood embankment. Additionally, a number of pumps were deployed to assist with drainage efforts in the communities of Little Baibu, Big Baibu, Pandit Canal, and Broken Waterlands. Maikoni, Abari, ADA will deploy machines to work full-time in the Abari area. Additional machines will be rented to elevate lands in the Abari area. Machines will be sent to Mortis to heighten the embankment. We will rent pumps for areas in Baibu, which has machines to do emergency work. In Region 6, Mr. Speaker, more than 23 villages were impacted by the flooding, especially those residents who had minor flooding as a result of water flowing down from the Gaisuku cultivation area. NDIA intervened by sealing the embankment and culverts, separating the Gaisuku cultivation area from residential areas. NDIA has also installed pumps to drain flood waters from the Kanji, Canefield, and Adelphi areas. Further, excavators were deployed to seal breaches along the Kanji Creek area, near forests, and other nearby villages. We have seen water receding to a safe level in Corbett Creek area and a significant drop in Chesney. In Region 10, Mr. Speaker, all outlets of the Demerara River are functional. Despite this, flooding has been experienced at Kokwani, Tomaka, Rockstone, Three Friends, Moritaro, Malali areas due to increased water level of the river. As part of intervention efforts, mechanical cleaning is ongoing in Region 10, and up to yesterday, Mr. Speaker, mechanical cleaning is taking place at Tomaka to bring some form of relief to the community that is suffering from the floods. Mr. Speaker, we will recall that after taking office on the 2nd of August 2020, we as a government started with an emergency budget An emergency budget where we embark on a number of emergency and mitigatory projects, infrastructural projects throughout Guyana, especially in the coastal region. Mr. Speaker, I submit, had we not embarked on these projects, our people would have suffered more than they have suffered from the floods today. Mr. Speaker, for as long as these conditions remain on the land, the CDC, in collaboration with other agencies, will continue to ensure that timely assessments and responses are done in keeping with the processes set out in our regional disaster risk management plan. The government and the CDC will continue to engage with the National Drainage and Irrigation Agency, the National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute, the Guyana Livestock Development Agency, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Public Works, the Ministry, all other ministries, as a matter of fact, to address key emergency concerns in communities. Other ongoing efforts, Mr. Speaker, will be the continued distribution of food and non-food items, such as sanitation hampers and hygiene care packages to affected residents, establishing and maintaining temporary shelters in other communities as the need arises, and conducting detailed damage assessment as required. With these conditions expected to continue in the coming weeks, Mr. Speaker, residents are asked to take necessary precautions to safeguard against additional flooding, strong winds, lightning, and mudslides in their community. As our country continues to face this national crisis, our government expresses its unwavering commitment to the ongoing support and relief of our people, and we look forward to continued collaboration as we continue to take a multi-sectorial and interagency approach to bring resolution and relief for our citizens. Mr. Speaker, only today, in pursuance of the powers conferred upon his office by Article 99 of the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, our President, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, has signed a declaration declaring a disaster in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. This is a level 2 disaster, Mr. Speaker, and what it simply means is that while we have the national capacity to respond and is not yet overwhelmed, we are seeking some external assistance as required to bring relief to the people during this difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. The Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Since the initial reports of a cluster of pneumonia cases of unidentified origin in China in December 2019, the novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, that causes COVID-19 disease, has spread throughout the world, igniting one of the deadliest pandemics. According to the WHO, as of the 9th of June 2021, 173,674,502 persons have been confirmed with COVID-19, including 3,744,408 deaths. These numbers continue to grow as unvaccinated populations serve as incubators to hatch new variants of concern. And these, in turn, have unleashed new waves of new cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. In the Americas, Mr. Speaker, there have been 68,779,6 760 confirmed cases, with 1,805,681 deaths. The deaths in the Americas represents 48% of all deaths globally, making the Americas one of the deadliest places or one of the global hotspots. In Guyana, since our first patient on the 11th of March 2020, we have recorded 18,088 confirmed cases, with 15,898 persons who have recovered to date. Currently, we have 1,770 active cases, of which 84 persons are in the hospitals. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we have lost 419 persons to this dreaded disease. I would like to express our sincerest condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, since the pandemic started in Guyana, our healthcare workers have been at the forefront of the fight, and initially, they were working with less than ideal conditions and putting themselves at risk for COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, today, many of those nurses and doctors and laboratory technicians, radiology staff, and other health personnel continue to work beyond the call of duty to save patients' lives and livelihoods. In the hospitals and vaccination sites across the regions, they are working steadfastly for us to immunize the Guyanese population. These same health workers, Mr. Speaker, are also today monitoring the flood situations for waterborne diseases and are taking proactive measures to prevent outbreaks. Mr. Speaker, I know I speak for all the government MPs and for the government as a whole, and I am hopeful on this subject. I can speak for everyone in this House when I say to the doctors, nurses, laboratory technicians, the pharmacists, and other healthcare workers that we want to thank them from the bottom of our hearts. You exemplify the best in all of us and inspires us with your selflessness. Mr. Speaker, despite the diligence of our healthcare workers, we will not be able to exit the COVID-19 pandemic unless our population is properly immunized. The safest way of doing so is using vaccines. There is no doubt that vaccines work. Evidence of the power of vaccines can be seen in several countries that have effectively carried out mass vaccination programs. Countries such as Israel, the United Kingdom, and the United States, where there have been a sharp reduction in the cases of hospitalization and deaths. These real-life population data is a testimony of the effectiveness of vaccination programs. Mr. Speaker, many countries have seen the results and would like to implement such a mass-scale vaccination program on their own territories. The challenge, however, is the unavailability of vaccines. There's a global vaccine scarcity. That is, the demand for vaccines has outstripped the supply. And according to the WHO, as of yesterday, approximately 2.1 billion persons have been given vaccines. And of these, 458 million persons have now been fully vaccinated, representing 5.9% of the global population. Mr. Speaker, in Guyana, as of yesterday, we have been able to give out 297,490 doses of vaccines. Of these, 81,729 persons are now fully vaccinated. This represents 10.6% of our total population, or 16.8% of our adult population, bearing in mind that most vaccines in use are only for adults. Mr. Speaker, as we know, older persons and those with comorbidities are at a higher risk of the more severe forms of the COVID-19 disease. As of yesterday, 72.5% of persons 60 years and older have had at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. In terms of the elderly population, this represents one of the highest rates of first dose vaccine for elderly population anywhere in the world. We are hopeful that soon all these persons who have received their first dose vaccine would be able to come and get their second dose so that they will be fully vaccinated. Mr. Speaker, we still have much ground to cover. In the 40 to 59 age group, we are only at 41.2% of first dose vaccine, while for persons 18 to the 39 age group, we are at 38%. We need to encourage more of our younger people to come out and get vaccinated. Since this group, the 18 to 39 age group, represents a higher percentage of the confirmed cases, meaning that they are more active and they have contracted more of the infection. And to date, we currently have within this age group about 9,760 persons who would have been confirmed with COVID-19. There's a myth that is going around that for younger persons, you don't need to take the vaccine because you're going to get a milder form of the disease. But from what we are seeing in our hospitals and what we are seeing of severe cases, we have noticed that a trend where younger people are coming into the hospital and some of them are even dying from COVID-19. So we need to encourage our young people to make sure they come out and get their vaccines. Mr. Speaker, we have also seen regional disparities in vaccination, where in some regions people have eagerly come forward to be vaccinated. These regions include Region 6, which is currently at first dose vaccine at 51.9% of their adult population. Currently at 51% of their adult population. Regions 5, 4, 3, 7, 9, and 2 are all in the 40s in terms of coverage, first dose coverage of their adult population. While we have regions 8 and 10, which is lagging behind. Region 8 at 28.3% and Region 10 at 13%. While we appreciate that in each of these regions there are certain peculiarities, we have to redouble our efforts to ensure that people in all regions are fully immunized as quickly as possible. Mr. Speaker, Guyana is on the path of securing enough vaccines to cover our entire population in 2021. We have utilized several options to ensure an adequate supply of vaccines. This includes bilateral donations from countries such as Barbados, India, and China, and also includes multilateral arrangements such as COVAX. We have also successfully concluded several purchase agreements with suppliers such as the African Union, the United Arab Emirates, and Sinopharm of China. We have already received 465,890 doses through these varied arrangements, and a similar amount already secured, most of which would be expected to arrive in Guyana during this month. Mr. Speaker, unlike other countries where access to vaccines have been problematic, Guyana has secured adequate doses for the adult population. Our main challenge is vaccine hesitancy, which is often driven by careless and irresponsible talk. I urge every one of us to be a little more mindful and cautious about the potential harm we can unintentionally inflict when we unwittingly share misinformation about vaccines. Let's change vaccine hesitancy to vaccine enthusiasm by encouraging every eligible person to take the vaccine. To paraphrase Martin Carter, Mr. Speaker, all are involved, and if we don't, we will all be consumed. Getting people to take their vaccine is not a government issue or an opposition issue. This is a national issue. And on a national issue where people's lives and livelihoods are at stake, we have to rise above the differences and make sure that we work in the people's interests by encouraging them to get vaccinated. Mr. Speaker, while I could not in previous sittings of this House, I am glad that today most of us in this House, as far as I'm aware, are on record of taking vaccines or of speaking directly to our people about taking vaccines. I have heard the President of our country, the Vice President, the Prime Minister, and many of the ministers and members of Parliament on this side of the House encouraging citizens to take their vaccines. And more recently, I have heard the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Joseph Harmon, the Honorable Kemraj Ramjatan, the Honorable Karen Cummins, and other members of Parliament on the opposition benches, also calling on people to take their vaccines. I would like to applaud and recognize their efforts and to encourage them to continue to spread the word about vaccination. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to report that many of the faith-based organizations, private sector leaders, trade unionists, and other influential persons have also been adding their voices to encourage people to get vaccinated. Some have gone beyond advocacy by demonstrating conviction, by taking the vaccine and making a statement about the vaccine, by encouraging and by sharing facts about vaccination, by working with the Ministry of Health to mobilize people for vaccination, by doing on-site vaccination drives at their churches, their temples, their mosques, and at their work sites. And some workplaces have also been offering monetary incentives to get vaccinated, while others have given their staff time off to go and get vaccines. Whatever it is that works for your organization or your constituents, we are happy to work with you to ensure that every adult in Guyana would get their vaccines. Mr. Speaker, we have made much progress since the PPPC government came to office. I recall what we inherited. Virtually every medicine and every medical supply item was in short supply. Many of the more than 1,000 medicines in our national formulary were at nil or almost zero supply. This was compounded by the huge stock of expired items that cost the taxpayers billions of dollars. And Mr. Speaker, between August last year and May of this year, we have discarded about $3 billion worth of expired medicines. In the region, a private audit team discovered that more than $1.5 billion in expired medicines at regional bonds. And we estimated that between 2017 and 2020, more than $10 billion of expired medicines and medical supplies have been discarded. Mr. Speaker, today the situation has changed drastically. With enough essential drugs and medical supplies in every region, we expect that the continuing arrival of medicines and medical supplies from recent procurement will reduce the massive shortages of medicines and medical supplies we inherited in August of 2020. We expect by the end of June, by the end of this month, we would significantly stabilize the supply chain. While we should still have some items being short, we expect that we would reach a stable state where most of the medicines that are required by our patients, they would be able to get them in the public health system. Mr. Speaker, I remain optimistic that we can return to normalcy and eventually bring an epidemiological end to COVID-19 by achieving herd immunity in Guyana. We already see a glimmer of hope on the horizon. It is pleasing to note that for those who have been fully vaccinated, meaning that they have gotten both doses of their vaccines, that we have not had a single case of hospitalization from those persons, nor have we seen a single death of those who have been fully vaccinated. This should serve as an incentive for everyone to come out and take their vaccine. As the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros, has said, no one is safe until everyone is safe. And if we can paraphrase that a little bit in the context of vaccine, no one is safe until everyone is immunized. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker and honorable members of this House, on the 13th of June 2021 will mark the 41st death anniversary of Dr. Walter Rodney. His wife, Dr. Patricia Rodney, and children Shaka Rodney, Kanini Rodney Phillips, and Asha T. Rodney Esquire, have requested the assistance of His Excellency President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali and the Government of Guyana to formally honor the life, legacy, and contribution of Dr. Rodney to Guyana, and to finally set the public record straight in relation to certain matters surrounding his tragic death. Today, the privilege is mine to announce that His Excellency the President and the government of Guyana have acceded to this request as part of the historic step of bringing a level of closure to the Rodney family with respect to the death of Dr. Walter Rodney. This is a momentous occasion for many reasons, and it is also a personal privilege for me, and indeed all of us, to be part of a process to right this tragic wrong and to begin the process of the rectification of the historic record. Walter Anthony Rodney was only 38 years old and a leader of the Working People's Alliance when he was killed in a bomb blast on June 13, 1980. As per the Forbes-Burnham PNC government, Rodney intended to blow up the Georgetown prisons, but the bomb was accidentally detonated. The Rodney family and Donald Rodney, Walter Rodney's brother, who was in the car at the time with Walter when the bomb exploded, have vehemently and consistently opposed this narrative for 41 long years. The news of Dr. Rodney's tragic death sent shock tremors to the conscience of Guyanese, West Indians, Americans, Europeans, Africans, and indeed the world over. To say that Dr. Rodney's death and the ensuing events in relation thereto were a horrendous miscarriage of justice would be an appalling understatement. The self-evident truth is that when wrongs of such magnitude occur, they can never really be righted. The least can be done in this instance is to attempt to grant the wishes of the loved ones of Dr. Rodney and to work with them in bringing these wishes to fruition as they attempt to forge their own closure in relation to this horrific tragedy. On the 8th day of February 2014, a commission of inquiry was appointed by President Donald Ramotar to inquire into and to report on the circumstances surrounding the death of Dr. Rodney. Mr. Speaker, I am hearing Mr. Duncan shouting at me. Can I invoke your protection, sir?
Honorable members, the shouting, please. I will start naming people. And honorable members, I think I want to urge, even though we may be fully vaccinated, let's continue to wear our masks as examples. Honorable member, Mr. Duncan, please. Honorable Minister, please continue.
On the 8th day of February 2014, a commission of inquiry was appointed by President Donald Ramotar to inquire into and report on the circumstances surrounding the death of Dr. Rodney. The report of that commission of inquiry was tabled under this House under the APNU-AFC government in 2016. A motion was tabled in this House shortly thereafter by the Honorable Gail Teixeira, then opposition member of Parliament of the People's Progressive Party Civic, calling upon the government to implement the recommendations of that report. The motion was voted down by the then government. This government hereby commits to move another motion in this House shortly, seeking the approval of that report by this House and a resolution that the recommendations contained therein be approved. An inquest was conducted 8 years after Dr. Rodney's death, and the findings were that Dr. Rodney died by misadventure.
Member Mr. Mahipol.
Thank you, sir. Sir, COVID is still real, and the honorable member is still not putting on his mask, even though you said that you should wear the mask.
Thank you, honorable member Mr. Mahipol.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I have two observations. One, order in the assembly. And shortly, I'm going to I'll have to invoke the necessary standing orders against some people who are shouting. And Honorable Attorney General, please, I would encourage us to wear our masks.
This government hereby commits to move another motion in this House shortly, seeking the approval of that report by this House and a resolution that the recommendations contained therein be approved. An inquest was conducted 8 years after Dr. Rodney's death, and the findings were that Dr. Rodney died by misadventure. This inquest was reviewed by the 2014 Commission of Inquiry and found to be incredible, flawed, and dubious. Steps will be taken to invalidate or set aside the perverse findings of that inquest. Although this son of Guyana was best known and respected throughout the world for his academic accomplishments, scholarship, and activism, his death certificate described him as unemployed, as he was denied a job at his country's only university after working at universities across the globe. This historical wrong will be corrected, and the death certificate will be amended to read professor instead of unemployed. We have already begun and will continue our efforts to secure the records of the 2014 Commission of Inquiry. Those records will be digitized by our National Archives, recently renamed the Walter Rodney National Archives, in collaboration with the Walter Rodney Foundation and the Atlanta University Center Robert W. Woodruff Library, Atlanta, Georgia, and copies of the same will be housed at that institution as part of the Walter Rodney Papers and Special Collection. The Rodney Grave Site and Memorial are currently being managed collaboratively between the Rodney family and the National Trust. Today, I am proud to announce that they will be declared national monuments and fall under the administration of the National Trust. One of the greatest tragedies flowing from Dr. Rodney's death is the loss of his scholarship to the people of Guyana. His children's books that celebrate the cultural heritage of Guyanese, Kofi Badu out of Africa, and Lakshmi out of India, shall be placed on the national syllabus by the Ministry of Education and in the hands of primary and secondary students across this land. Additionally, his other major works, including a history of the Guyanese working people, Guyanese sugar plantations in the late 19th century, and how Europe underdeveloped Africa, shall be made available to the Library of the University of Guyana. The Walter Rodney Chair at the University of Guyana will be re-established. It is common knowledge that Donald Rodney was in the car with Dr. Walter Rodney on that fateful evening and is also a victim of this tragedy. This included a perverse conviction by a magistrate court, the burden of which Donald Rodney carried for the past 41 years. Fortuitously, only recently the Court of Appeal of Guyana set aside that conviction. Every effort will be made to remove and expunge all public record that intimate any level of guilt or wrongdoing by Dr. Walter Rodney in relation to June 13, 1980 tragedy. For too long, Dr. Walter Rodney's death has been the subject of an irreverent misdescription. It was not a misadventure, it was an assassination, a great stain on our republic. This sadistic misrepresentation on Dr. Rodney's death certificate prevented his family from recovering not a blind cent from his insurance policy, the only financial provision he made for his family, his wife, and 3 infant children. This desecration must end now. His death certificate will be amended to delete the word misadventure as the cause of death and substitute, therefore, the word assassination. In this regard, it is opposite that I refer to the findings of the commissioners in their report in the 2014 Commission of Inquiry. They state, and I quote, "We have no hesitation in holding that Gregory Smith was responsible for Dr. Walter Rodney's death on the 13th of June 1980. And in so doing, he was acting as an agent of the state, having aided and abetted so to do by individuals holding positions of leadership in state agencies and committed to carry out the wishes of the PNC administration." Unquote. One of the key findings was stark. I quote, "Dr. Walter Rodney was a man of large and significant stature, both in Guyana and beyond. And at the time of his death, he could only have been killed in what we find to be a state-organized assassination with the knowledge of Prime Minister Barnum in the Guyana of that period." Unquote. In all democratic societies, there are fundamental laws by which the civil rights of citizens are acknowledged, recognized, and protected. Our Constitution, as it did in 1980, sets out these fundamental rights and freedoms and protections. They include the right to life and provisions to secure the protection of the law. Dr. Rodney was denied these basic, inalienable, but fundamental human rights. Expectedly, Dr. Rodney's death has had a lifelong and lasting impact on the Rodney family, Donald Rodney, and indeed on Guyana. As such, the government of Guyana adopts these measures as simply the right thing to do. As Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, and on behalf of His Excellency, President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, and indeed the government of Guyana, I join with the people of Guyana in expressing sorrow to his widow, Dr. Patricia Rodney, and to their 3 children, Shaka Rodney, Kanini Rodney Phillips, medical doctor, and Asha T. Rodney, attorney at law, and also to his brother Donald Rodney. I have personally spoken with them to convey the government's position on this matter. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me commend you for the honorable step that you have taken in ensuring that an order of court was respected and 2 members of parliament did not take their seats today. Mr. Speaker, it is public knowledge, and as reflected in the Hansard, the record of the 27th sitting of the 12th Parliament on the 4th of March 2021, that 6 APNU-AFC members of Parliament were suspended from the sitting for that day. Those members of Parliament suspended were Christopher Jones, Sherrod Duncan, Jermaine Figuera, Vincent Jordan, Natasha Singh Lewis, and Amanza Walton Desir. Mr. Speaker, I refer to Standing Order 47, which sets out the order in the Assembly and in committee. I specifically refer to 3A of the said Standing Order, which sets out procedure to deal with the conduct of any member. The Standing Order states that if the offense has been committed in the Assembly, the Speaker shall call upon a minister to move that comrade / the honorable member, Mr. / Miss, be suspended from the service of the Assembly. The Speaker shall then put the question on such questions forthwith, no seconder being required, and amendment, adjournment, or debate being allowed. As you are aware, Mr. Speaker, the procedure was not complied with on that day in question. No minister moved any such motion for a member to be suspended. It is my view, Mr. Speaker, that the suspensions were improper since there was no adherence to the standing order. I therefore request, Mr. Speaker, that the records be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. In response to what you have said, I want to quote that same standing order. But I direct you to the standing order before the one you mentioned, and that is 47-2. And I read, the Speaker or the Chairperson shall order any member whose conduct is grossly disordered to withdraw immediately from the Assembly during the remainder of that day's sitting, and may direct such steps to be taken as required to enforce this order. Honorable members, I would once again say there is a particular procedure for one to challenge a ruling of the Speaker or to deal with the conduct of any member. And I would once again urge that we familiarize ourselves with all the standing orders and don't cherry pick which one we want to use. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker,
Thank you, Honorable Leader. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, I was seeking to have the record of the Assembly corrected. That is what I was trying to do. Because, Mr. Speaker, as you read, in fact, it says basically that only one person, one member at a time can be done. The rest has to be by a motion of the minister. That is just
Thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Clerk.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance.
The Honorable Member, Mr. Mahipo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I must say, I am shocked. I am seeking permission to adjourn on a definite matter of urgent public importance, and that has to do with the flood situation that is currently going on in Guyana. Sir, the unfortunate situation is a number of persons are affected by this flooding, and I believe strongly, sir, that the negligence on the part of government has contributed to this devastation that our people are faced with. Sir, the APNU AFC during the period 2015 to 2020 had a regional disaster risk management committee set up in all 10 regions, and their duty was primarily to prepare for these floods. But unfortunately, those disaster risk management committees are no longer in place. So I want to first of all call on the government to re-establish.
Honorable Member, the issue of raising a motion on this particular heading has to do with three matters: definite, urgency, and public importance. And as a matter of courtesy, the Speaker would allow a brief statement to justify why the mover would want to move such a motion on this particular head. So I would like for you to confine your comments to the issue of urgency, the other issue of um, public importance, and the definitiveness of the situation you are dealing with.
Sir, reference to Standing Order 12.2, I wish to seek your permission to request leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly to discuss a matter of definite, urgent public importance to which the present flood situation, which has been described by His Excellency President Irfan Ali as the worst natural disaster in our nation's history. People's livelihood has been disrupted, properties are damaged, livestock and other animals died, while many are displaced. There is widespread devastation across the regions of our country caused by the current floods. In my humble opinion, there is need for the establishment of a national relief program, which is aimed at bringing assistance and comfort to all who have suffered as a result of this disaster, to plan with the aim of mitigating the negative impacts of such floods in the future. There is a wide.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Would you allow me to now make my decision, please? Yes. Honorable members, this is not the first time that we have arrived at this position, unfortunately. But the issue of the motion that has been raised, as we have said earlier, and the Honorable Member has said also, is definite, urgent, and public importance. And we have many references to judge by, including rulings of the speakers. In our standing orders, you will find such a ruling in one of the appendices. But I will read the references here. First, there is no doubt that we have floods. The definitiveness of what has been described is on the ground. The second issue there, it is of public importance. And His Excellency, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Member, has mentioned the amount of persons affected. The issue here is urgency. Urgency. And in relation to the issue of urgency, the matter must be, it is said, of recent occurrence and raised without delay. In this regard, Erskine May states on page 386, the fact that a grievance is continuing is not sufficient. It's not sufficient. I refer to the fact that the events, I also refer to parliamentary procedure by Kashyap. It is stated at page 767 that the matter must have arisen suddenly in a manner of an emergency and should not have arisen over a series of weeks. And so my ruling on this is I cannot allow the motion. There is sufficient time to bring a substantive motion that is dealing with all of the results. There is sufficient time to bring a substantive motion to the House to deal comprehensively with what we are experiencing at this time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, would you...
The Honourable Member, Mr. Maipol.
Thank you, sir. Sir, would you permit me to ask if you would not consider this situation urgent on the basis that it poses a threat to the preservation of life? I'm just asking if you can consider that, or have you considered that in your ruling? The preservation of life for me is under threat. and the AP and UAFC believe so
Thank you very
also.
much, Honorable Member. Mr. Clerk.
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by a minister. Introduction of bills.
Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I present to the National Assembly the Summary Jurisdiction Offences Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 6 of 2021, a bill intituled An Act to Amend the Summary Jurisdiction Offences Act, and I move that the bill be read for the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Summary Jurisdiction Offences Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 6 of 2021.
Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you very much, sir. I rise to present to the Assembly the Civil Law of Guyana Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 7 of 2021, a bill intituled An Act to Amend the Civil Law of Guyana Act, and I move that the bill be read for the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Civil Law of Guyana Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 7 of 2021.
The Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I presented to the Assembly the Police Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 8 of 2021. A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Police Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Police Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 8 of 2021.
Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I present to the Assembly Firearms Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 9 of 2021, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Firearms Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Firearms Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 9 of 2021.
Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I present to the Assembly Registration of Births and Deaths Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 10 of 2021, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Registration of Births and Deaths Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 10 of 2021.
Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I present to the Assembly the Evidence Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 11 of 2021, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Evidence Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Evidence Amendment Bill 2021, Bill number 11 of 2021.
Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I present to the Assembly Narcotics, Drugs, and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment number 2, Bill 2021, Bill number 12 of 2021, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Narcotics, Drugs, and Psychotropic
Substances Control Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment number 2, Bill 2021, Bill number 12 of 2021. Public business, private members' business.
Honorable members, we have a first motion in the name of the Honorable Member, Mr. David Patterson. I am, at this moment, unable to proceed with the debate on this motion because since this motion has been tabled and put on the order paper, action has been filed in the High Court of the Supreme Court of the Judicature. That action bearing the number 2021-HC-DEM-CIV-FDA-742. Consistent with previous rulings regarding matters that are sub judice, I again report the standing orders 26G and 4-1-2.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to make
the Honorable Mr. Ramsden.
No, I can understand.
Go ahead.
But what I had wanted to bring to your attention was the development of the judicial rule. As you know, we take our things and bring it from the House of Commons. And that rule, just for the sake of our purposes here, has been qualified to a certain extent. Because whenever we have serious matters like this, of flaring and all of that, and we had brought the thing in long before somebody filed an action, it is important then that a discretion be used, and I'm going to get to that in a short moment, for the purposes of not causing the Parliament, which is the premier institution of the land, to be hamstrung by these litigation that can come. There is also an important exception to this rule, a qualification, that assuming that we had brought a bill, a private member's bill, say, or even a minister had brought a bill, that action that is filed cannot stop us based on this sub judice rule. Because we then, our legislative capacity could be hamstrung again. And that's the whole point of this matter, is that we in this Parliament, when it was used to ensure, the purpose behind it was to ensure that we do not influence or prejudice the adjudication that will happen inside of the court. That is the whole arrangement. What we have here is obviously not going to do that. And I am urging that indeed, well, if you don't want to listen to me, that's all right. But the trouble is,
Honorable Member, please, I'm listening to you.
Yeah. I am saying, because the House of Commons, and I've gotten it here, I'm going to give it to you. The present rule rightly tries to strike a balance between two sets of principles. On the one hand, the rights of parties in legal proceedings should not be prejudiced by discussion of their case in Parliament, and Parliament should not prevent the courts from exercising their functions. On the other hand, Parliament has a constitutional right to discuss any matter it pleases. Now, in relation to this thing, that is why they say in 2001, this ruling came out that indicated these kinds of collision courses that we have, like as present, you should make it clear that it has a discretion and the chair has that discretion, the speaker. This is what the joint committee recommended. it is made explicit that the rule applies in committee. They went on. That was a separate issue. The new provisions clarify what is meant by a case that is active. Because you could bring a case to deal with Exxon, but it ain't got nothing to do with the core and crux of what we are dealing with here. And because, well, I don't even know about the case.
Honorable member, please speak to me.
Well, if it does. The provisions of civil proceedings are relaxed so that the pretrial applications are treated as distinct proceedings. And then the relaxation of the rule now applies to any judicial review of a ministerial decision rather than being of reviews on grounds of misdirection or on bad faith. But whatever it is, we had a ruling that was made by Speaker Raphael Trotman, 7th of August 2013. There was a case that was filed in connection with, I think, the limit of outstanding amount under the guarantees given under the Guarantee of Loans Act, which was said to have offended 26G. And he made an extremely important ruling, and I hope that that is considered when you determine this matter. Standing orders must be read, interpreted, and applied in a purposive manner. In my considered opinion, it could never have been intended that a simple filing of a writ of motion could prevent a debate on an issue in this House. Rather, it is my considered opinion that the purpose of the standing order must be to ensure that the outcome of a matter is not prejudiced by the debate or resolution adopted. Apart from guaranteeing fairness in trials and court proceedings, it also serves to recognize and respect the hallowed doctrine of separation of powers. Because we got our powers here too. It must not be limited. Nothing has been stated about the progress of the hearing of the appeal, and this is where he tried to make the distinction, and I hope that that was done, because I am now learning that there was an action filed, but we don't know what has happened to that appeal, that case. Nothing has been stated about the progress of the hearing of that case, and its likelihood of being concluded and all of that. And so, not because we could get what you call subsumed by litigation. And when private members now want to bring a motion, you get somebody fix up a little litigation there and stop it. And instead we dead here. That cannot be. That cannot be. And so I'm urging that you reconsider in view of all the additional facts that you have that I don't have. I don't have the action number, what they're seeking, if it's in identical terms to what the mover of the motion is seeking here, and so on. But we should not just willy-nilly feel that,
Honorable member, thank you very much. And let me assure you, the decision of the chair was not made willy-nilly. In fact, in this particular instance, the relief being sought in court is almost identical to the resolve clauses here. So there is that issue which I had to consider. The second issue I want to comment on is the issue you raised with respect to a bill being brought to the House. And even in the last sitting of the National Assembly, we had to deal with that. I want to urge that in light of all these developments with respect to the subjudicial rule, it's going to be good work for the Standing Orders Committee as we review these standing orders. Thank you very much. I am again being guided by our well-learned clerk, and I'm reading from Erskine May 23rd edition, page 387, matters awaiting judicial decision. The House has resolved that no matter awaiting or under adjudication by a court of law, including a coroner's court or a fatal accident inquiry, should be brought before it by a motion. By a motion. So the arguments are very, very good on all sides, and as I said before, the issue is going to be Good, good work for the Standing Orders Committee. Thank you very much. The Honorable Member, Mr. David Patterson. Honorable Member, you can now move the other motion standing in your name.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Apologies. Mr. Speaker, let me start off by saying that I join with the Minister of Health in offering our support and congratulations to the frontline health workers who have been doing yeoman service in the battle against this pandemic. And let me also say I join with him in encouraging persons to become vaccinated. Mr. Speaker, I've heard the Honorable Minister mention, I'm taking the opportunity, sir, to mention the vaccine hesitancy. And you might be aware that part of the hesitancy is people don't trust you, sir. People don't trust the administration. I'm being quite frank. And maybe, sir, if he really wants to tackle this is the national issue, he should invite the opposition to at least join the task force so that they can tackle this holistically. You can't on one hand say to us, let us help you, go and take 2 photos and those things like that. Can I have some protection, sir? I think. And then, on the other hand, sir, you don't even want to include the opposition in any sort of task force or COVID release, the COVID issue. So together, I do think, Mr. Speaker, that we can tackle this problem and get by it. So as a plea to you, sir, the regions in which you set out is vaccine hesitancy, so you could see, I know Region 8, when the PPP were in opposition, they went wrong saying it's a hoax. We can work with you to convince them it's no longer a hoax. And then, of course, in Region 10, we have a serious issue. They don't trust you. And we are willing on this side, Minister of Health, to work with you to help them. Mr. Speaker, I've heard all the discussions that you have given on the flaring motion. What I did not hear you say exclusively, sir, is the fact that the flaring motion was tabled in this House on the 22nd of February. The case that you are referring to, sir, that makes my flaring motion sub judice was filed on May the 21st. 4 months, sir. 4 months this Parliament was prorogued, sir. 4 months we could not have a sit-in. Sir, obviously, sir, if the government had seen fit to have a sit-in in the interim of the 4 months, this motion would have been debated and determined quite a long time ago, sir. So the record must reflect that we waited 4 months. We waited on this, patiently waited 4 months for the Parliament to sit. And then when it is sit, unfortunately, sir.
Honorable Member, I don't know if you know something different from me. 4 months by an average of 30 days is 120 days. Good? So if you want to refer to facts, please be a bit accurate. And I won't allow you to go down that road. You said 4 months. 4 months this Parliament has not met. So, and then there has been a ruling of the Speaker with respect to the Parliament. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I am not questioning your ruling at all, sir. I am just saying, so that if the Parliament had met between March the 2nd and today, sir, the motion would have been dispensed of.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move a motion under my name for the locations of shore bases to serve the oil and gas sector. It is a simple motion seeking to ensure that we develop, as we give permission for such facilities, that we do so in an open, transparent manner, considering the need to protect our environment, the need for economic diversity, as well as the applicable zoning and land use policies. Mr. Speaker, shore bases are required to provide services for the offshore oil production. These bases can be called hubs. These are like bus terminals or even air cargo terminals, sir, whereby goods, products, and other services are assembled at these shore bases and transported by marine vessels to the FPSOs in the drill shore and the drill ships offshore. When ExxonMobil commenced exploratory drilling in 2014, their drill ships were being supplied from shore bases in Trinidad. Sir, and on the discovery of oil in May 2015, and the decision by the coalition administration to support ExxonMobil's efforts in achieving early first oil, shore bases in Guyana became a high priority. Our administration, which I mean, sir, the coalition administration, was determined to have onshore bases in Guyana as soon as possible, sir. Our rationale behind our decisions was to support the offshore and oil and gas industry, since oil companies benefit through reduced costs and imported and improved product times. Meaningful local content participation in the offshore energy sector, and developing local capacities and capabilities, sir. Diversification of the economy to help spread the direct and indirect economic benefits of the oil and gas sector. Sir, the provision of employment and helping, sir, to develop our human capital. And finally, sir, attracting FDI and creation of other investment opportunities. Mr. Speaker, based on these criteria and based on these goals of the coalition administration, in mid-2015, sir, and I'd explain to you what the difference is with what has been going on here and us. In mid-2015, sir, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, it was then called, and the Ministry of Natural Resources, commissioned a screening study of new onshore bases and ports. Sir, I have a copy of it here in my hand, sir. Obviously, I know now that it's still in the ministry. It was part of the package that was left in the ministry with the honorable ministers, both ministers. Unfortunately, it doesn't have many pictures, so I don't know if they read it. But this, I have a copy, fortunately, sir. The screening study for new onshore bases and ports, sir. This was done in, the report came out in September, 16th of September 2016, which highlighted that there are no suitable bases in Guyana. The nearest bases, of course, was in Gotola and Chaguaramas in Trinidad, and they, sir, were 250 miles away from Lisa 1, where the first discovery was in 2016. And the use of those shore bases, sir, were costing the Guyanese public, the people of Guyanese public, over $1 million per day. Of course, sir, this cost did not affect Exxon because their cost recovery
It's the benefit of the people if we reduce the cost. Obviously, the reduction in the cost means there's a faster recovery period, and then obviously we can um, start seeing a greater benefit from the oil production deal. So, sir, there was no incentive by the oil producers, Exxon, to move from the bases in Chagaramas and in Trinidad. But, sir, we as a government in 2016 decided, obviously, that it was something that should be done. Sir, despite us not having any suitable port, our government, the coalition government, commenced a four-state approach to these challenges. Sir, we did phase one. What is still here at the moment? Phase one, sir, we said so that we will do whatever is necessary so that we can get the first oil based on this report by 2020. First oil was actually on the 20th of December 2019. Sir, and what we did, sir, is give permission to Exxon to look wherever possible, open and do an open RFI to find possible locations within Georgetown or the country so that we can have shore bases, a shore base. Now, our idea was in 2016 is that even if we can't supply 100% of the services, we wanted to ensure that whatever shore bases were in Guyana, we could at least do half of the services, minimum of half of the services, which obviously would be down to savings for our country. So our phase two, which is post-first oil, is what I would consider where we are at the moment. And so our phase two, we wanted expansion of these services. We want to ensure that including the fabrication of steel work and pipe work, workshop yards, specialist repair and maintenance workshops, rotating equipment, valves, laboratory testing, inspection, diving, rigging, training. And sir, we said the next phase, the next phase of onshore bases should be able to cater for that, sir. And we had a plan to ensure that post 2020, that we would work towards that. So we had phase three. Phase three is heavy industries, whereby we know self-sufficient. Phase three was we're self-sufficient, sir. And then of course, phase four, according to our study, was the integration of the Linden, Lethem, Brazil Highway into this network and the deep water port and all these stuff. Sir, Mr. Speaker, for my friends over there, we examined proposed locations throughout the country: Essequibo, Berbice, and of course, Demerara. Sir, and we examined these. Sir, before I even go on, I hear the honorable member prattling over there of Myconi. May I inform him, if the honorable ministers of public work are willing to share with him some of the documents which are done by the World Bank, the IDBs are the leading port engineering firm in the world from the Netherlands, recommended that that same area he's kidding and laughing about, the Myconi East Coast area, to be done for shore bases and deep water ports. And it's online. Sir. So if he would like, it has a lot of pictures in it. He can look at it and he can see. Sir, we checked, sir, Essequibo, Demerara, Berbice. We looked for the deep water, the draft, existing facilities, sailing distance.
land availability, flat land, worker-friendly environment, road links to Georgetown and airports, utilities, environmental issues, and of course, lastly, linked to Guyana, Brazil highway. Sir, the number one ranked area in this here, sir, for my friend who is singing there was Berbice. Yes, so we'll get to that, sir. We will get to that. Sir, number one rank was Berbice, and I want you to bear in mind, I would like you to bear in mind, because I heard the Honorable Member Ramson speak about we only do things for our constituency. Berbice, sir, is not our constituency, but that was the number one rank place, and I'll tell you what our government did in relation to that shortly. Sir, the first RFI for onshore brace was launched in Guyana in 2017. So we got the report. We said that we'd like to do it in Berbice. The recommendations were, after we checked all the rankings, was Berbice, but unfortunately there's no facility in Berbice. There was no facilities in Berbice, sir. Sir, it was launched nationally. We said that there's no restrictions where it was launched nationally. Sir, only two local shippers were shortlisted. This, sir, was Munishwars and John Finance Limited. They're the only two facilities that were shortlisted. Sir, in September of 2017, Exxon awarded the contract to Gisby for the shore brace. Since it's the only such facility capable of doing any such a thing. Munishwars was, sir, and I'm coming to that, sir. This was awarded, right? Despite the obvious challenges of the location, sir. Munishwars started out as a container terminal. The Munishwars started out as a container. Sir, can you ask them stop rubbling there? Munishwars started out as a container terminal, but because they had the size, they were awarded the contract. Sir, Mr. Speaker, Houston is now the hub for the oil and gas. But they became so, sir, not by virtue of any studies or any future development plans, but simply because Exxon awarded a contract to this in 2017. Generally, suppliers seek to be close to the shore basis to reduce their costs, as I said. And that is the reason why the Houston area, sir, is the hub of oil and gas. And I will, for the benefit of the gentlemen here, sir, these are the area, Houston, where there's now the oil and gas hub, sir. These are, I just go 2 transports, sir, from Plantation, Houston, Sugar Estate, 2017. And I'll tell you the lack of zoning, sir. 2017, this is Houston area. May, 18th of May, 2017, sir. And it says here, no shop, factory, manufacture, trade, industry, business, or profession of any kind whatsoever shall be carried out on the said lot. No cattle, pigs, donkeys, horses, mules, sheep shall be kept on the said lot. No stable, pigsty, cow pen. Sir, those, sir, are the conditions under which the lands were sold and permission were given for them to sell in Houston. In 2019, sir, just 2 years ago, this said plot of land is for residential, commercial, or retail uses and shall not be used for industrial purposes. No factory, manufacturing, industrial, engineering facilities can be constructed upon or operated in the said lot. So I make those things, sir. If you go to Houston right now, that entire area, sir, despite it not being rezoned, is industrial operation. The only reason it became an industrial is because Gisby was awarded the contract. Sir, and we acknowledge that we played a part in it because we supported the industry in trying to get the first oil. Sir, what has happened in the interim since that has happened, sir? In Houston area, sir, they sealed off a canal so that they can get extra space. A canal. They've closed off a sluice at the head of Houston so that they can get additional space, sir. It's uncontrolled expansion. Sir, in these times of flooding, can you imagine the authority in that area? They have closed off a canal. Sir, they have been fishing wharves, sir. I shouldn't call the name of the company. That has closed down. They've closed down and sold out to the oil and gas industry because it's more profitable for them. They're endangering the livelihoods of all our fisher folks, sir, because that particular fishing wharf employed independent fishermen. So anybody that would have a fishing boat can fish and sell their product. So yes, that's correct. Yes. Sir, environmental hazards. There are the residents in the area, sir, who were unfortunate to move into Houston before it became an industrial site, sir, have carried the EPA and the government to court over chemical spillage, chemical bonds, and those things like that. And obviously, sir, we have traffic-related issues. Everyone that lives on the East Bank knows about it. I'm very well aware about it, of the issues, sir. You have a turning at Houston which causes major traffic jam. So I highlight all those issues to tell you what can happen if you allow shore bases or private entities to determine who and where they would like to build higher for their private entities are only interested, Mr. Speaker, in the bottom line. That, sir, would have been highlighted very aptly if the flare motion was been able to be debated. Unfortunately, it has not. It's not. But the issues of climate change I will raise. So I hope you wouldn't stymie or cut that when I come to that. Sir, as I said, the coalition government supported the initial operation. However, we were committed to ensure that future development would be done in a structured manner. To achieve this, we are moving to establish industrial zones and areas where future bases can be constructed, as opposed to allowing a free-for-all. As I said, sir, we had very little option in the location of the first onshore base. The Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Minister Trotman, sought, sir, and received cabinet permission, that is in 2016, sir, to proceed immediately with phase 2 development of an onshore base. The selected location was Crab Island in Berbice. Sir, and Cabinet gave their approval, sir, in May of 2017. Sir, some strange things immediately happened, sir, because obviously in selecting Crab Island in we first contacted, and I'm glad the Honorable Leader of the Opposition is here because he would know this. So in selecting Crab Island, the first thing the ministry did was contacted the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission. The very first thing we said to them is that the government has decided that Berbice, economic diversity, we would like to state land, which is land owned by the state, unencumbered land, and we would like to partner, zone it for industrial purposes, zone it for onshore base so that we could help diversify the economy in Barbados. It is not, of course, the stronghold of the coalition, but we said we were going to do that. So immediately, and of course, the mistake I do think that we made, sir, Minister Trotman went to what was then called Pain Talks in Barbados, and he announced that Cabinet has approved working and developing a shore base with the private sector in a public-private partnership in Crab Island. Strange things happen, sir. Persons unknown. Every Jim Cock and Bing Ram goat, as they would say, turned up with leases. Lands and Surveys never ever had it. The master in Lands and Surveys is the master list of all the leases. Persons turned up saying, I have a lease. I have a lease for this part of Crab Island. And when it was discovered, sir, that under the PPP, there were several agencies issuing leases. Several agencies issuing leases, sir. So you could have, you don't, under the PPP, you didn't have to, and I'm willing to be challenged here because I have copies of them here. I'm willing to be challenged here. You can get up and you can walk to, say, just for example, my good friend Vikram's office, Minister of Natural Resources, said I allowed a lease for Crab Island, and he goes onto the table, sir, he pulls out the lease document and he signs it, and you don't have to register it with the Ministry of with Land and Surveys. You now have a valid lease. Sir, at least 8 persons, sir, turned up saying that how they own the part of Crab Island. No, there was no official stamp, there was no record whatsoever in the Master Registry of Land and Surveys. Further, sir, there were state land, there was issues of state land, sir. Further, the Minister, leader opposition there, they proceeded to carry us to court or threaten their lawyers, sir. Some eminent senior counsels came and represented them, and you asked them when we came to see him, how he got this? That doesn't matter, he has it. So, sir, immediately the idea of Crab Island and was shut down. You will have? Sir, that reminds me, sir, you mean, I've heard the honorable member there shout that you could terminate the lease, sir. And it reminds me, sir, of one of the things that pains me up to now. Terminating a lease reminds me of one of the things that pains me up to me, sir. One of the promises of this coalition was to get Diamond. That to fix the road in Diamond, sir, and ensure that they have a flyover that they could leave, sir. First thing that we did, sir, we went to the IDB. And we obtained that. This is just to digress a bit because we're talking about buying back the land, sir. Talking about buying back the land, sir, we went in IDB and we launched a bid because on the maps, on everything, they said, oh, we have a reserve of by the Diamond. And we went to tender, sir. The IDB went to tender. And the day, sir, we walking the contractors, you do site inspection. There is a man turns up with a transport for the reserve with the police. And you know what the honorable members there said, sir? And sir, it was amazing, sir. It was amazing. There was almost 2 acres of land. 2 acres of land right to the head. It's still there, $1.5 million. And you know what the honorable members over there said? Go and buy it back. And you know what it costs to buy it back, sir? Over $100 million. So that, sir, is what they're doing, enriching people, selling out their reserves, and that's why we must buy it back. That, sir, is the true story. You can check that. And if everyone knows that, sir. Sir, time is moving. This motion, sir, calls for establishment of a task force to complete the work started by the coalition. Rezoning areas specifically for oil and gas. Sir, so that the occurrence of what happened on the West Bank, sir, where a private developer destroyed acres of shore zone protection without permission. Sir, and to mitigate it, sir, the Honorable Minister said, oh, he will put up a revetment and you do shore zone, you do some protection, sir. Zero respect, sir. Zero respect for the EPA. Zero respect, sir, for the Sea Defense Board. No plan, sir. He's gonna do sheet piling 20,000 things that sheet pile. It has not even been approved. It has not even been approved by the Sea Defense Board, sir. You should check. You should check the challenges and the approval process that Gisby and John Finance had to go through to erect, because they have shore bases there, sir. Not this government. Sir, there have been no assessment, sir. Over the West Bank, there have been no assessment of the impact of the shore base would be on our rivers. So the Demerara River takes 90% of our commercial cargo, 90% of our containerized cargo, sir. Sir, it has even been diminished because of a harebrained idea by the PPP to put a submarine cable in the main anchorage point, which is from Freedom Hoop to Kingston. Short-sighted. So therefore, obviously, no boats can even moor in that area, because there are 3 mooring points on the Demerara River. One was there, one is just before by the boathouse, and the other one is all the way up in Craig. They took it away. You know why, sir? They were too lazy to think of any other idea. So, sir, you are now giving approval without going through any of the regulators, any of the regulatory bodies for a man or a company to build a shore base. And your idea and your response is he's going to do street piling. And that will save the people, sir. Sir, when it comes to the Sea Defense Board, it would be remiss of me to make mention, sir, always under our administration, the Sea Defense Board always has space for persons from the opposition. Always. And I've shown it publicly that I would have written to the leader of the opposition. Sir, we didn't even ask who. We didn't even ask where, or if he or she didn't even put a qualification on it. We made it an automatic right to the leader of the opposition to have a member, because our government recognized it. The opposition had members and they have supporters that live somewhere along the shore, and they must have an avenue. They must have an avenue to express themselves. That doesn't happen now, sir. That doesn't happen now, sir. So therefore, you have the Sea Defense Board, sir. There's no board, no state board in this country, sir, it has a representative from the opposition. It was a policy direction by the coalition government. Every single board must have the opposition on it. Sir, the motion also calls for the government and for us, all of us in this parliament, to have a state that we have a preference for future shore bases to be built in Berbice and Essequibo. Guyana has 3 main rivers, sir. At the moment, all the oil and gas operations are now concentrated in Berbice. So the distances away from the SPSO or the fine, sir, is almost equal for all 3 rivers. Sir, by saying we have a preference, that doesn't exclude Demerara. Doesn't exclude Demerara, sir, because as I will go on to tell you, the projections in the next 5 years of among the vessels we will have to be served in the next 5 years, all 3 counties can have an onshore base. Mr. Speaker, zoning. Zoning has been an issue for us, this country, sir, and I am not putting this on any single administration. Collectively, sir, he doesn't know what zoning means. Collectively, right, sir, we have all failed in our attempts to zone. Everybody, everyone there, sir, you would know that you have a residential area, and we turn a blind eye to the man that opens the shop. You open the shop, you sell the sweets. Then the mechanic comes in the spray shop and the wash bay because everyone has to live. Sir, but when it comes to the oil and gas sector, sir, when it comes to hazardous materials, when it comes to flaring, when it comes to these industrial things, we have to be particularly concerned. Sir, so I come to what I'm asking for, so the resolve clauses. So the resolve clause 1, is asked to establish a multi-agency task force to prepare a land use policy specifically for the oil and gas sector, zoning, so we could have a structured approach for future expansion. So this work has already commenced. Sir, under the Lands and Surveys Department, the Department of Energy, I know former Minister Ferguson, Central Housing and Planning. So it's simply a matter of completing this process. So when it's completed, the entire country will know where you can do. Or if you want to have exclusions, sir, if you have a particularly unique sector, you can apply for your area. It's not zoned for that purpose, but you can apply for it and have it done. But there will be a clear idea of what's going on. Sir, as I said, the second resolve, of course, as I said, is a preference for Berbice and Essequibo. It's not intended, sir, to be exclusion of the Demerara. Sir, all three counties can benefit equally from the new oil and gas sector, sir. There is more than enough to go wrong.
Yeah.
If Exxon achieves what they projected to achieve with Lisa 1, Lisa 2, Payara, and now Yellowtail, it is anticipated by 2025 we will need 12 wharf spaces to serve 40 platform supply vessels, PVS. These are the vessels that go in and out, sir, because out there by 2025, you're supposed to have 7 FPSOs, 7 drill ships. And I challenge you, sir, please, sir, you can bring it. Sir, currently Gatsby, sir, has 2 wharf spaces. So at the end of 2025, sir, we'll be looking at 10 to 12 wharf spaces. Oh, so the youngster over there who knows nothing. I have it here. When I walk, sir, I always walk with my backup information for those youngsters, those battalions who like to speak out. Sir is here. And you could come and collect it. Yeah, sir. So there's more than enough to go wrong, sir. So this motion is calling on the government to say that they have a preference, sir, for Berbice and Essequibo, right? And then obviously we could then do all the rest, sir.
Oh, wow.
So the third resolve clause, sir, right, simply seeks that we indicate, sir, to Exxon that they must suspend their RFI, allow us the 6 months because of what I've asked, sir, for us to complete and report back to their zoning policy specific for oil and gas. And then afterwards they can continue, sir. And of course, the final reserve clause, the fourth reserve, so, sir, is the one I think that causes most contention, which is to say that I start off by saying, sir, all industrial parks done in this country were built by on state land. All. I mean, collagen, echoes, whatever. It's sold to private individuals, lease whatever it is, whatever mechanism is in place, sir. So, sir, we were just seeking to say, sir, even if the government doesn't develop, they designate in the zone areas and say you are going to Upper Berbice is the area where anyone can build your offshore areas, so that we are structured. So that is what is basically calling for, sir. Sir, these are non-contentious things, sir, and I can't see why the government and the government side will not be able to support this. It is calling for a bit of order. It's calling for us to take the time to have a national development plan. We're calling for us to rezone. Sir, they talked about second cities and those things like that. But you can't do that in isolation with the plan. Sir, it's calling for us to take time out, have a plan, and then let us move forward. Right now, sir, Guyana is like Wild West. Wild West. And you know, sir, Comrade Batty Lyons, when it comes to Wild West, sir, you and your battalions and battalions are forefront to it. Sir, so I hope, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Folks, don't worry with that, youngster. Sir, so I like to close by asking, sir, that the members on the other side support this motion so that we can reestablish some order in our society. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable members, I think this is a very good time for us to take the suspension.
No tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one